We're going to cover now the section on how to mount a pole that can be used either to mount an aerial or a satellite dish, but generally for an aerial in this particular thing. You have three basic choices if you're going to mount it on a wall. The first choice is to use something like a sky bracket. The next is to use a single one-piece standoff bracket. It comes in a single piece like this. But probably the most flexible of them is the T and K bracket. So you can see here there's choice of 3 T and K brackets. The small brackets here are a 12-inch bracket. The next size up is an 18-inch, and then there's also a 24-inch. Now, in about 15% of cases of houses with very small soffits, a 12-inch bracket will do. The 18-inch is far and away the most commonly sold and a very, very popular bracket. And then the 24-inch bracket will be a very popular bracket for houses that have wide soffits. Now, you can get larger than that, but you know, most places won't stock them because they'll be very, very unusual. 1% of houses would need something larger than the 24-inch bracket. When it comes then, what will we mount on top of this bracket subsequently? We'll mount a pole. You can use an aluminium pole here or a stainless steel pole. It's 32 millimeters wide. It's a total of 1.8 meters long. It's held onto the pole via these U-bolts which slot through here. You mount them here and then tighten afterwards. You'd need a 15 millimeter if you use a large U-bolt, or a 13 millimeter socket to tighten in these nuts. Then we come down to how we'd actually mount it to the wall. And the choices you have here is you could use these coach bolt and plugs, which are cheap and reliable, and we could also use these Hilti style bolts here, and they are far stronger. They're a far superior job. They need a larger drill bit, and what I'd say to people generally is for heavy weights or for very large brackets like the 24-inch brackets, I'd use these, and for the simpler jobs normally these type of brackets will be sufficient. If I was going to mount a satellite dish rather than an aerial on this, a light aerial, I would come along and I'd probably use these ones. But in this case, I'm actually going to use an 18-inch bracket, and I'm going to actually use a 12-inch bracket, and I'm going to just show you the basic steps involved. So in terms of tools, I need a cordless drill, I need a ratchet, a 13 millimeter socket, and a guide hole drill bit, and a proper 10 millimeter drill bit, and I'm going to use these plugs and bolts. So the first step is I'll pick up the guide hole drill bit and I'll drill my holes. So it's a matter of debate whether you should put the T or the K on top. These here are called a K for obvious reasons, and this bracket is called a T for an obvious equally reason. So in general terms, I would put the K bracket on top. What we do is we hold up the bracket like this. There's slots in the bracket, so it's not absolutely essential that you drill the hole in exactly the right position, but you can be a couple of millimeters out, but generally you want to have it as accurate as possible. You want to check that it's square to the wall, and you come along and you drill 3 drives. 1, 2, 3, and then you would take down the bracket and change from the 6 millimeter drill bit to a 10 millimeter drill bit. Repeat the process, and using the guide hole, you would drill a total of 3 holes. Now, I've actually drilled these holes already for the purpose of making this video as quick as possible. From there, I move on and I push in 3 plugs, which has been done already. And now I'll come along and I pick up the 3 bolts here, and my ratchet and my 13 millimeter socket. Now, this I haven't done already. So I hand tighten the first bolt, coach bolt, I hand tighten the second coach bolt, and now I'll hand tighten the third coach bolt. So the bolts are tightened in this manner. And they're latched securely to the wall. So that's that part of the process completed. The next step is we come along, once again, go back to a guide hole, hold it up. Once again, you would drill the 2 guide holes, checking they're square and level with the bracket above, drill the 2 holes here, drill, and then we'll change out to a larger 10mm drill bit. And once again, I've done this already. So I'll come back, I'll take up 2 more coach bolts, my ratchet and my 13mm socket. I come along and I mount, use this bolt and this bolt. You can see this bolt is far less stable than the bolt above, but they act in unison as a team. So from that perspective, once I've tightened these and put it on the bolt, or put on the bracket actually, the bracket actually will act as a bracing that will stabilise, or the pole will actually act as a bracing to stabilise the unit itself. Because there's an actual slot on these brackets here, even at this point, you can gain a certain amount of adjustment left or right. So keep an eye to make sure that the brackets are lining up perfectly with each other. And if not, try to push them either to the left or the right or slightly up and down to get the square finish that will look good afterwards. Probably won't affect the actual functionality of the brackets overly, but still, a crooked bracket will always look somewhat unprofessional. Now the next step is we fit our U-bolts. So the U-bolt is clearly meant to be mounted in the following manner, like this. Now, one quick trick is to actually slide the U-bolt through like that, which means we only have to take off 1 bolt, 1 nut. That's quite fast. If you had a very large U-bolt and a very skinny pole, a good trick you can do is actually mount it backwards and mount it like that. But ideally what you want to do is you want to have it looking standard, okay? So once again, with this particular bracket and with this particular bolt, it will be sufficient to tighten it in terms of the normal way. So I just tighten this in by hand, come along. The U-bolt is roughly the dimensions suitable for sliding in a pole. We're getting closer and closer to actually tightening in this pole. So next I grab the pole, I mount it. It's very variable now. So in this particular situation, if you took the bracket beside me and you discovered you wouldn't like the pole to go any higher than the wall, it's too late. The pole has been mounted in that manner and it's quite difficult to change the height of it. But with a T&K bracket, I can mount the pole like this, or I can drop it down as low as this. So it's quite flexible, and that's why I'm quite a fan of T&K brackets, because no other bracketry gives quite the same flexibility. So that's the first pole. Now in this case, obviously, particularly if we're trying to gain an aerial, we want to gain as much flexibility as possible in height. We come along, we tighten it by hand, we come along, put a ratchet. Now, this pole here in this particular example is an aluminium pole, so it would be ideal for mounting aerials, but it would not be ideal for satellite brackets in my experience. It's just not heavy enough. What we get now is we just turn here, rotate and tighten the bracket top and bottom, and now we have a fully installed bracket, T&K bracket. This is a 12-inch. It'd be the same process for a 12 or for an 18 or a 24-inch. So you can see the whole procedure quite simple. The amount of tools needed quite minimal, and it gives a very strong bracket and very easily done for gable ends of houses. Can be used on chimneys, or it can be used on the back of a house to prevent a satellite or an aerial that would otherwise have to be mounted on the front of a house, or a satellite dish for the same manner if we were using the steel bracket. And that's it, the installation of a T&K bracket from beginning to end.